Gat she Christina Haswood, Yinishet, Hodachinish land, Baslishin, Pushish, Enish, Ashatapaha, Dashacheki, Aniashnella. Hello, my name is Representative Christina Haswood. I am Diné Navajo. I am Bitterwater born for the Black Sheep people. My maternal grandparents are of the Zuni Edgewater. My paternal grandparents are the Towering House people. That is who I am as a young Diné woman, Navajo woman. We're originally from Topeka in Arizona, so Inscription House, Arizona. And on my parental side, we're from Inscription House, or no, Hunters Point, Arizona. And I just wanted to quickly welcome everybody to this Indigenous Community Centers event in partnership with a lot of organizations. It's been a pleasure working with all the Indigenous leaders in Lawrence. I know a lot of us are frustrated with the outcomes of abortion rights and care, especially with Roe v. Wade being overturned and the Kansas August 2nd abortion amendment is going to be on the ballot. So I just wanted to quickly maybe give a little bit of my perspective as a state legislature. I work in Topeka, so I am a state House of Representative legislature. I am one of 125 in the House of Representatives in Topeka. And then on the other side we have 40 senators, and then we have our governor. And I'm completing my first term. Our terms are 2 years, and so this summer is my re-election period, and I'm running unopposed. So I'm pretty much preparing for the next 2 years. But we do have a very important election happening on August 2nd. So if you're a registered voter, by the time you're seeing this, the voter date to register to vote has passed, which was July 12th for the primary ballot. If you want to vote in the November election, that has a later date, so you're still okay on that. But I just wanted to explain a little bit of how this came to happen. In the Kansas State Legislature, there was a bill to amend the state constitution. Several years ago, the Kansas Supreme Court, our state Supreme Court, ruled that abortion was a right here in the state of Kansas according to the interpretation of law of our state constitution. And with that, it was pretty much difficult to pass any type of abortion policy, which we know that many folks want to just outright ban abortion immediately. So that was not feasible because of that Supreme Court decision. And that is why we have a thing called a constitutional amendment, which is going to be put on our primary ballot. So they did have a choice on which ballot to put on or to just call a special election. They could have, but they wanted the August primary ballot. And you probably have your own suspicions on that, right? Because statistically, people don't get out to vote on primaries. Elections like mine, where I'm running unopposed, could be a strategy to decrease voter engagement. If we look at when I first ran for office, I was in a three-way Democratic primary and had voter engagement that topped previous years of other representatives, especially if you're running unopposed. And it takes a little work to get people to the polls as well. So, you know, not saying that's exactly why they did this, but just saying coincidences are adding up. So we had the abortion amendment. It was HCR 5003, I believe. Let me just look it up real quick. Okay, yeah. And then the title is HCR 5003, amending the Bill of Rights of the Constitution of the State of Kansas to reserve to the people the right to regulate abortion through their elected state representatives and senators. So this came out of House Committee of Federal and State Affairs, and this was requested by Representative Barker, who was a Republican and chair of that committee. And then if you go on the state legislative website and just kind of look at the page, you can see that this bill was first introduced January 12th. So that most likely means that was pretty much one of the first days of the legislature. And you can see EFA on this. Emergency final action is what that means. That means that they suspended rules where you might have come the next day and vote. You can see that it ultimately just basically got shoved through the legislature. The final vote was 86 to 38. So 86 House of Representatives voted for this, and 38 voted no against this. I was one of the no's, and you can see several amendments were proposed. And they were pretty much all party lines. And then on the Senate side too, it passed. You needed a 2/3 of the majority. 28 said yes, and 11 said no. Is a little bit of the legislative history of it, and I always mention how a lot of representatives we heard from the conservative side that they ran specifically for office on this issue, and I think that's a telling sign that we knew this was coming. I think maybe on my side, of course we knew this was coming. It was a tough day. We did this back in February. Session started in January. It was our first time as freshmen, and I just remember thinking, wow, this is happening. And I mean, they had the votes already there, so it was very frustrating. And now we were thinking, okay, what can we do to help get out the vote and bring awareness to this? So I believe both sides have done that pretty well, and here we are just about several weeks out of that vote. So that's how we kind of got here through the Kansas State Legislature, through my knowledge as a freshman legislature. But I would recommend talking to any other representatives or senators who have more of that institutional knowledge on the Kansas legislature. Now we're going to get into the Roe v. Wade decision. Now, I don't have a law degree. I am just going to be talking from my understanding and how I'm interpreting all of this. It raises a lot of concerns of court cases that were decided based on the decision of Roe v. Wade. And with that, abortion care or the right to privacy is not guaranteed in the United States anymore. And it has been left to the states to decide. And that's what Kansas is currently doing. That has been set up that way. So Kansas's abortion ballot amendment on August 2nd, as serious or as inclusive to the conversation of other states of what's at stake. And I understand there are trigger laws that went to place, governors ready to sign away, but we had a little bit of time to bring more awareness and voices to this issue across the country. So Kansas is, I believe, maybe the only state to have this on their ballot for the people to decide. That's great. And I just think that the way things were set up for the people to decide, there were several voter suppression bills. You can refer to Loud Light videos on that. Restricted that passed this past session after the abortion amendment to take away accessibility to voting. We just recently had a county, Atchison County, shut down their voter registration. For what reason? And then they finally got it back up because they got in trouble for it. We can see the intent of ill intent everywhere with this decision. But with the overturn of Roe v. Wade's court decision, it was surprising to hear the outcry of what about native land and federal lands and tribal lands, thinking that it's some magical loophole, which I find quite ignorant, to put that on tribes where we already don't have the infrastructure. People obviously don't know about the Indian Health Service system, the Hyde Amendment, which we do not receive free health care for abortions. So it was always we never had a right to an abortion through the healthcare system of that way. That was treaty right to serve us. It raises a lot of questions, and I'm glad that I have not heard this tribal lands are gonna save us type of rhetoric. And I always say all tribes are not equal. Some might be very, very conservatives in their ways still, and maybe a tribe does not believe in that. Maybe they're conservative in that way. But seeing that through the indigenous lens as well, where us Navajos, we had historically teas and medicines of abortion and family care, and just seeing all that not being passed down or continue to be practiced due to stigma, taboo of talking about sex education and reproductive and abortion. These terms are kind of scary to me. I would say they're just not normalized. people tell you not to say those types of things, but they're very important. That's a little bit of the impact of Roe v. Wade, and seeing how it impacts BIPOC Indigenous women. Again, through the Indian healthcare service system and through the Hyde Amendment, we are not allowed to use federal funding, which funds the Indian healthcare services in IHS facilities. So I can't go to my IHS and go get an abortion. I believe it's only you can if in life or death situations. But then again, our health service clinic here does not do life or death. It's a clinic, so you're ending up at the hospital, which you're already out of that system of treaty right. And I did not grow up on the reservation, so I can't really speak to the barriers, personal experience, but we know that transportation is a huge barrier. A lot of states who still now have abortion on the books as a right. There's these travel, like if you go to abortion clinic, you have to get consultation and then wait several days to then perform the abortion, because they want you to wait and think about it, to not make a swift action decision. Really wish they did that for guns, right? But they're doing that for a person's uterus, a birthing person, and that is, you know, gas money. Imagine if your state already banned abortion and you went to another state, that's like a hotel, that's food, that's taking time off work, putting your life on pause for these several days. And, you know, even if you've done your own research and you did all you could, and you're at this very difficult decision, ready to get an abortion, it's just a lot of hoops to jump over. And especially if you're living on the reservation, and have all these other barriers. Maybe you don't have a car, maybe you have kids already, right? We've seen statistics where folks who do get an abortion already have multiple kids and they can't simply afford another one. On the chopping block with the United States Supreme Court, the Indian Child Welfare Act, which corrects the wrong of Indigenous children not going to their Indigenous relatives, because they used to be seemed as unfit parental figures. With ICWA, by law, you have to do all you can to make sure an Indigenous child who is in the state foster care system or in state custody goes to an Indigenous family at the very least. Now, if they get rid of that and overturn that one, that'd be very detrimental, and it's the repracticing of colonization and genocide, cultural genocide. And this comes from a court case. Non-Native parents felt discriminated that they were trying to adopt a Native child and that they couldn't. With our foster care system, I think I don't need to go much into detail that we all know the foster care system is not this perfect system. There's children that die in the care of the state, sexual abuse that happens, neglect that happens, and statistically, when you put a person through this pipeline of systems that adds on to incarceration, our foster care system should not be shouted out as a happy solution. It should be the absolute last resort. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about what this abortion ballot amendment is. So looking at a sample of the ballot language, it's going to say, the constitutional amendment, vote yes or no. The explanatory statement is, the value them both amendment would affirm there is no Kansas constitutional right to an abortion or to require the government funding of abortion, and would reserve to the people of Kansas through their elected state legislators the right to pass laws to regulate abortion, including but not limited to in circumstances of pregnancy resulting from rape or incest, or when necessary to save the life of the mother. A vote for the value them both amendment would affirm there is no Kansas constitutional right to abortion or to require the government funding of abortion, and reserve to the people of Kansas through their elected state legislator the right to pass laws to regulate abortion. A vote against the value them both amendment would make no changes to the Constitution of the state of Kansas and could restrict state legislators from regulating abortion by leaving in place the recent recognized right to abortion. And then it has a law number 22. regulation of abortion. Because Kansas value both women and children, the Constitution of the state of Kansas does not require government funding of abortion and does not create or secure a right to abortion. To the extent permitted by the Constitution of the United States, the people, through their elected state representatives and state senators, may pass laws regarding abortion, including but not limited to laws that account for circumstances of pregnancy resulting from rape or incest or the circumstance of necessary to save the life of a mother. And then it says yes, no, where you will fill out. That is the language that you will be reading on the ballot. You're probably reading all this and you're like, what did I just read? If you are pro-choice, you're going to vote no. And if you're pro-life, you're going to want to vote yes. You don't have to tell anybody how you're going to vote. Other organizations that are on this effort that I'm aware of is most recognizable is probably Kansans for Constitutional Freedom. And they are leading the movement of the vote no on this. There's also Vote No Kansas, or Kansas Vote No organization that's really grassroots. They're doing text banking. I know a couple folks on that team. They are on social media and they're very active, so I recommend following them. Vote Nay Kansas, and this is one of my favorites. It's like cowboy, cowgirl themed. Basically just a fun way to tell you vote no. And they've been collecting statements, and I actually gave them my statement on voting no. So, and then you have like my campaign where we are canvassing and doing phone banking to constituents of House District 10 to tell them to vote no. Again, we are doing all this within the guidelines of the law. One of the election laws that was passed was if you are perceived as an election official, you could be given a felony. And my campaign, I have a lot of young BIPOC staffers who feel like that is just a risk that, you know, we do not want to take. And I personally do not want to take either. We are not doing voter registration. We are making it very, very clear that we are not going to cross that line. So that is what's happening on August 2nd. People, the registration date has passed. People are making voting plans. I would say make sure you make your voting plans. Your friends and family that are voters, make sure they know where to go. If you're going to be out of town that day, August 2nd, request an advance ballot or an absent ballot. Maybe your county has a polling location where you can go and do an early voting. An absent ballot through the mail. You're checking your mailbox every day. And I would also recommend dropping that off to a drop-off box, where each county, city has a different location of that drop-off box. That's one of the easiest ways, but for me, I personally like going in during early voting period and make my vote that way. If you want to volunteer for any of these organizations, or you want to volunteer for my campaign and our efforts, please email us at christina@haswoodforkansas.com, or you can DM us at haswood4ks at any of my social media platforms. I have Facebook, I have Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Just a couple of ways to get in contact with me, and then you'll get in contact with our field director where you can schedule a shift. Thank you so much for having me virtually today. I'm so sorry I was not able to attend this great event. It's really great to see Indigenous peoples empowering our community to get more civically engaged. If you have any questions, I'm always available, and I hope everyone has a great and fantastic day. Ek